Hello, Josh Loveridge. How you doing, man?
Good, good. How are you?
We are awesome. So, as you see, Josh is a little shy because we're live here from the Tower Club. So I got Josh with us, and we're excited to share some stuff with you guys. We'll let everybody come in. Please, everybody, let us know that you're in the live. Let's see who's here. Hello, Brett. Hello, Monica. Hello, Elise. And we'll get live from DC. So, guys, we're actually from in Tyson's Corner. We're at the Tower Club here. I have Josh here to share with us a little bit about what we're doing. So, Josh and I had lunch yesterday.
Yes.
And it was not just us. And basically, what we've decided, hello, Anel, is to give you back kind of what we talked about lunch to share it with you on live. So, Josh, you come from the gaming world.
Yep.
Okay, which is a very foreign world to me. Josh and I founded Viacry together, and the idea of Viacry is to basically take what gaming does best, which is basically getting people's attention
Yep.
and moving that into business. Using AI, blockchain, gamification, a lot of really great technologies.
Yep.
So, what I wanted to hear from you is tell us what gaming does better than B2B or B2G business. Like, what does gaming really know how to do, and how can we translate that?
So, the context set, it's actually very simple. Gaming's whole thing is to entertain and engage people and to retain people. The longer you retain someone, the more money you make. It's how gaming works fundamentally. It's actually a very simple business model. The longer a user is with you, the longer the LTV of that specific user will be.
What is LTV, my friend?
Lifetime value. So essentially, how long how much that person's worth to you as a company. So games have, over the years built ways to engage, retain, and get people to, I suppose, do what they want, which is spend money or do certain actions within the game, engage with their friends, all of this core thing. And the gaming industry has been honed in on that for years. Now, the interesting piece about that is there's been a technological evolution of tech stacks built around engaging people fundamentally, which hasn't necessarily translated over traditional B2B businesses, which are right now striving to try and get people's attention. We've seen it in the ad craze over the last couple of years. Nobody wants to watch ads. Nobody wants to engage in ads. And we've gotten to a point, which is hilarious, where people are actually now starting to make fake ads because they're trying to engage people with content that doesn't even resonate with what their product is at all. They're just trying to get people to listen. It's like the classic stampede. Everyone's trying to stand out. And to be honest with you, nobody's standing out because it's just not working anymore. So when that happens and, you're in a position where the things you have been doing don't work anymore, you have to look elsewhere. You have to try different strategies. Now, what of them strategies being? You've got the influencer marketing side where people are going to influencers who have a community who can essentially tell people what to do. And that worked for a while. Now it's not working so much anymore because everyone's doing it. So now everyone's trying to figure out, okay, how can we, innovate as a company? Because you innovate or you die. That's kind of how all companies work from both a B2C and B2B perspective.
Let's take a step forward. Us as humans, we love to play games.
Yes.
Okay. So, guys, to me, I was never in the gaming industry. I don't play many games. I do play games, but you know what I mean. But it's the biggest industry in the world.
Yes.
I think more than half the people on this planet play games on a daily basis.
Yes.
So the gaming industry has so much experience in getting our interest.
Yes.
Now, what we're trying to do as businesses, we want people to be interested. Let's say in this live, we want people to be interested in what we're doing. So using the knowledge from games, because games know how to get people 24/7. I know people that will not leave their computer, right?
Yep.
So how do we translate that into B2B or B2G, business to business, business to government? How do we translate that type of attraction and focus to that?
Well, it's actually very simple because fundamentally, if you break everything down into its core kind of essence or elements, there's three core things that really people need for someone to engage with a product or for them to hit their core KPIs. Number one is they need people to take action based upon an instruction.
So number one, action. You got to have people take action. That's the first step.
So once they take an action, you need them then to understand the information that they've received during that action. So for example, if it's a training thing, okay, first step is getting them to click on the training. That's step one. Then step two is you give them information you need them to retain and be able to understand that information. So that's step two, to be able. And then the last one is recall. That's the number one thing. So it's them three kind of steps for anything that need to be done to get a user to engage and then be able to repetitively utilize that shared knowledge that they've gained or whatever. And let's talk a real example to take it from theory to action. Let's talk sales training. If anyone's ever worked in a Fortune 500 company or whatever, you've gone through the boring HR training where you have to sit in front of a computer and you're like, okay, I'm going to watch a 3-hour video on how to sell to people. And then you go and apply that into real life and it does not work.
Not at all.
Because you haven't really understood what the actual problem was. Whereas if you turn that into a game, if you turn that into an immersive experience, if you turn that into a piece that actually requires you to engage, and there's a feedback and iteration loop that constantly comes back when you are going wrong, you quickly become better faster. And you actually can take action based upon some of those things. Great example. If you are getting that feedback back and you're going through a immersive experience or a simulation that's mimicking a sales cycle, you can then become better very quickly. And through the power of convolutional neural networks or LLMs, you can actually pretty convincingly mimic a person. Their reactions, what they're going to do, the negatives, what they actually want. Because really, selling's always breaks down to solving a problem.
I'm a salesperson.
Yes.
Salespeople do not like to read. So
Yes.
if you give people salespeople a lot of things to read, you're just wasting your time. Salespeople want to be in the game, right?
Yes.
Salespeople want to play. And that's what we do for them.
Yes.
Instead of putting them in a boring setting where they just need to go through it, they actually play.
Yeah.
Now, salespeople, as far as I know, are competitive as well.
Yes.
So we make it a game for them. We have leaderboards.
Yes.
So then we actually look at how much the person that trained the most, how much does it correlate to his sales? And what we find is it's pretty amazing. We're creatures of habit. So if habitually we practice these types of sales,
yes,
we're going to be so much better. Now, salespeople want to do something that interests them.
Yep.
So give me an example. How do we make sure that salespeople are interested in the education of sales we're giving them?
Well, fundamentally, if you put a video in front of them, they're never going to be interested because it doesn't actually correlate to them achieving a result that they want to achieve. But if you put a leaderboard in front of them, as I say, and say, hey, you need to get a better score than the other sales dude that's working in the org that you're competing against on your quarterly goals, well, then all of a sudden it becomes a deadly competition that, everyone wants to win. And, this has been tried over the last couple of years in a lot of different softwares. I know Salesforce has tried it, HubSpot's tried it. But if we're being honest, it's been very surface level and it hasn't been proper gamification. You can't just stick a leaderboard there and say, okay, go, do that. Nobody's going to do that. It has to actually be engaging. It has to be reactive. There has to be some sort of, give take from a user's point of view for actually them to be engaged with. In game design, which is, for anyone who doesn't know the theory of ludiology, there's one thing that we talk about, which is players need to get into a state of flow or synergy, and to get them there, you have to do a number of things. There's a number of steps to get them there, but the whole core goals is that they start to do these things without even thinking about it. And they, if anyone's ever done anything, watched a movie or been really engaged in something, and then all of a sudden 2 hours gone by and you never noticed. That is the state of flow, the state of synergistic play that you're trying to get people into. Now, as game developers, we've done that for years. So being able to take those kind of core tenets and tweak them into a B2B or B2C setting is actually very easy, because one thing I always got told was, when you are sitting in a field full of mediocrity, it's very easy to stand out and be, successful. Because nobody is doing it right now. Everybody is trying to, it's a zero-sum game. Everyone's like, okay, I'm just going to pump Facebook ads and it's going to work. That works until your advertising costs go from $4 a user to $400. It doesn't scale. So when you're in, and then the retention piece is another component, because when you have
Completely
high
different.
churn, it's just, there's no point doing it in the first place. So, taking some of these components and integrating them with these new tech stacks that are coming out, you can get something pretty cool that can be, utilized across a sales org, to actually, kind of level the playing field a little bit. Because the other thing is, in the most sales orgs, whether it be a small business or a, multi national organization, is that usually it's 1 or 2% of the sales force that are actually getting most of the deals done.
Mhm.
Everyone else is kind of sitting there,
Idly,
yes, idly hoping that something's going to happen.
hoping the phone will call and they get a
Yes.
sale. Yeah.
Yes. So,
I see that. Now we have a question from Ian. Can you gamify your website to educate and capture lead? Have you seen that done? 100% you can. So Ian, you can do it in many, many ways. Let's say we have this SEO audit. So Josh, you gamify the SEO audit. So when people take the SEO audit, they actually start playing this Jumpman game. And the more they get, they actually get more out of their audit. So that actually is a great way to gamify something. Now, Ian, we have an AI tool that basically creates amazing things. Now, the AI tool needs some time to create. Now, if we put it on there and let's say somebody needs to wait for 90 seconds, that's eternity. But if in those 90 seconds we make them play something,
yes,
90 seconds becomes fun. And now they're more excited to see what's next. And now they're actually more in the buying,
yes,
buying mindset. Absolutely. So I hope that that helps, Ian. We have Brett here. Can you adapt much faster through immersive experience? Is that what you are saying, Josh?
So 100% you can adapt much faster because you're engaged. You're not just sitting there, you're not just watching something, you're actually engaging with something, you're making decisions, you're rationally making a decision, so you actually have to think. Because number one thing, if you sit down and you watch, everyone's conditioned from watching TV. The brain goes off, they're thinking about what they're having for dinner, and they don't really care. Whereas if you have to rationally, put the dots together and in your mind actually think about what you're doing, through like a heuristic decision tree or whatever it is, you are actually then going to be engaged to learn quicker and faster. It's just basics. There's a reason why in school they get people to actually do things. They don't just just sit there and get talked to. And it comes back to the different learning methodologies, whether you learn through audio, kinesthetic, all those sorts of things. It comes back to those core tenets as well. As people, we learn certain things in certain ways. And when you're engaging all the stimuli, whether that be audio, visual, and touch and feel as well, that is really why games are such a powerful thing, because you are hitting each one of those stimuli. If you're listening to the radio, it's only going to work for audio learners. Whereas if you are playing a game, you're engaging with it, you're touching your phone, so you're getting these things, you're getting the visual stimuli in, you're getting the auditory stimuli, all of the things are being hit, so it hits everybody, which makes it actually quite unique in that forms.
So everything has a formula, guys. So I'm not a gamification expert like my friend Josh here, but back in the day, we figured out that if Twitter wants to get users, they must follow at least 10 people. If they follow those 10 people on the first session on Twitter, they will become a Twitter user. If they don't, they will not. It was almost like that, cut and dry. So this is a way to get somebody involved in the process instead of just putting a request and then forgetting about it.
Yep.
You got to get them immersed. So let's from gamification go into immersive experience.
Yes.
How do you create immersive experience? Let's talk about the event. We all do events. We all go to networking. You and I have a bunch of events this week.
Yep.
How do you make events more interesting for the companies that put those events on? How do you make immersive experiences?
So we are now moved past the stage at events where you can just put up, a boring, backdrop to your stand and everyone's going to come around. We tried going down the routes of giving out free shot skis at the event. That doesn't work either, because what happens is someone picks them up, they go to the nearest bin and they drop them in. Nobody cares. So the only way to really engage people is to give them an experience that they haven't seen before. There's a reason why, a great example, I was at D23, which is the Disney event for anyone who doesn't know. Every single booth at that event was an immersive experience. It was like a living, breathing entity that was on the show floor where people could go through, they could see their favorite characters, they could do all that. If you go to even a car show right now, they have cars driving around, they're doing all these cool things. You can see, big SUVs going over these, various different challenge areas or whatever. The reason they're doing that is because they want people to feel engaged, and they know that just putting a banner is not going to do it anymore. So the great bit about the immersive experience side of things is now we have true tech stacks like using Unity game engine. You can actually build full virtual simulations that can be run in a variety of different ways, where it actually requires people to engage from both a physical and then a digital perspective as well, because we've got technologies like AR, XR, which kind of blend the physical and virtual world together. So that intersection of virtual, digital, and then physical together really kind of create this immersive experience that can be utilized for event providers to be able to push that through, which is what everybody is doing now.
And you must. If you have an event, you got to think immersive. There's so many ways to do it, and it's not always, top of mind. For instance, we've done a fun thing with a luxury kind of brand, and it wasn't for the actual buyer. It was for the kids.
Yes.
So basically, a luxury brand, they don't want the kids to drive their mom out.
Yep.
So what they did is they created a really immersive experience for the kids to find things, think Pokemon type thing, and find treasures, and by that give the mom discounts.
Yes.
So now you're connecting everything.
Yes.
The kids are playing. Yes. The more they play, the more the discount the mom gets, and then the people at the store get the mom completely to themselves.
Yes.
So what is a bigger win than that, right?
Well, there isn't really, because it reduces all the core, the metrics needed to hit the core KPIs that everyone's trying to hit, which is the core goal, anyone's trying to hit.
And let's talk a little bit. I know this is not the sexiest subjects, but let's talk a little bit about blockchain. Guys, blockchain is a superior technology that allows us to do a lot of things.
Yep.
One thing that blockchain allows us to do is it allows us to give digital assets to people, and then we can actually interact with them when they basically engage with those digital assets. And that's something that works amazingly. Can you share a little bit, with our audience, how do you do that?
Yeah, so I mean, on the blockchain side of things, blockchain got a bad rep for a long time. I always say all blockchain is a distributed ledger technology that enables you to transparently own digital assets on an immutable chain that can't be messed with, can't be changed, and that anyone can access.
I'll interject. Guys, I know there's a bad name to blockchain. Blockchain is just a superior technology, and like every superior technology, it will surface up. Politics, fear, greedy people, criminal people, that's happened. We can't deny it. But every technology that's better than their other technology just surfaces up, and that's what's going to happen with blockchain. And I think you and I are convinced that that's going to happen, whether the word becomes sexy or not.
Well, if we look at some of the biggest stock exchanges in the world, they migrated to blockchain years ago, and they never really talked about it. And the reason, a lot of people, it gets a bad rap, is because people don't understand it. People generally fear what they don't understand. Blockchain's great because, and the reason I particularly like it is, you can deploy a smart contract, which, for anyone who doesn't know, it's just a piece of code that sits on this immutable ledger, and it can just run autonomously without anybody backing it, messing with it, doing whatever that. When X happens, it will do Y. It's a very simple, fundamental thesis, essentially. So pretty much you can deploy these like cloudless functions to this, digital ledger in the cloud, and it will do whatever you want. The great bit in how that feeds into utilizing it for gamification and how companies and brands can utilize it is you can then start to, get interesting with your rewards programs, deploy some of your, archaic technology that's sitting on SQL databases to the chain, and, run this immutable ledger that is just going to enable you to do everything faster at a fraction of the cost than traditionally it would have cost. And we great example of a company that has done this really well is Starbucks with their Starbucks Odyssey program.
Yep.
It's done amazing. Everyone loved it. Their core KPIs went up like 600% just by switching it over, because people really felt engaged, because they were like, hey, I've unlocked these digital collectibles, because that's really what it is. It's a digital collectible. You walk into any person's house, they generally have collectibles that are sitting around in some form, whether that be nice, sofas, whether that be nice little statues, whatever it is. Everyone likes collecting something. Humans are hoarders by nature.
Yeah.
Which, otherwise we'd all just live in small little, little boxes.
And what we need.
Right? Yes, exactly. And generally what we need isn't a lot. So the rest of it is all, abundance. And it's because we like to collect. And, so having that represented on a digital front is super important for people, because then they can share it with their friends. And like 70% of our days now are spent interacting with tech in some way. So it just makes sense that is going to start to transcend onto something like a blockchain.
I love that. So guys, I want you to look at blockchain, because blockchain is coming. There's nothing that will stop it, whether it becomes sexy or not. Let's look at some questions. Anil here is asking, could social media platform effectively integrate immersive experiences, gamification to boost your user engagement? Can you share a use case that has been successfully implemented? Great question, Anil. Thank you. Josh, you want to take it?
Yeah. So this has already been done a million times over. One platform that's done this extremely well is Meta, or Facebook as it was formerly known. So Meta, for anyone that isn't aware, was actually one of the first kings of gamifying their social platform. Anyone remember Farmville? Now this is going back a while, That was one of the biggest drivers of users to their platform, to get people to engage. That is how companies like Zynga were born, was out of these social games on platforms like Meta, where users could play, where they were engaging with their friends, and they were socializing the experience. Great example, if anyone's played Monopoly Go, a lot of people have. Very popular game right now. It is not actually about playing Monopoly. This is it's about socializing with your friends through the experience of Monopoly.
Of a game.
Yeah, that's really what it is. Messing with your friends, doing whatever, talking to them, messaging them, all these core things. So social platforms innately are starting to integrate that. Like you're seeing Discord have now integrated instant activities, which are games that you can do. YouTube has rolled out, a beta program where they're starting to play around. Okay, should we be pushing games? But actually, Snapchat's done it with, the various different AR filter games. Everybody is doing it because it is an easy way to engage and retain users. So everybody's trying it. Everybody's seeing how they can leverage it. And it is just pushing up those retention metrics that all these platforms are trying to hit.
Marketing is a game of exposure and time that you can get the people interested to stay on your product. And there's no better way than gamification and immersive experiences to keep people on what you want them to do.
Yes.
If not, they'll leave. As good as your product is, people are not that interested. Okay. Yeah. You need to work that interest. There's so much out there. There's so many things that come out us. We need to create fun, basically. Elise is asking, do you think an off-the-shelf option is going to give us what we're looking for in the future with AI gamification or an LLM? That's a great question, Elise. I have a lot to share about it, but do you want to start?
So this is an interesting one, and this is like the crux of any sort of technological boom or innovation. What happens is, it's actually an interesting thesis. So you've got typically a handful of companies. Let's talk AI for a second, or AI is
three, yeah.
Three companies that are really innovating. You've got Google, you've got OpenAI, and then you've got Tencent. Really, they're probably attributing probably 80 to 90% of the actual innovation, and Nvidia as well. They're doing it also,
of course.
So a couple of handful of companies are innovating. They are contributing 90% of the actual technology that's being utilized, and a lot of them are doing it in open source fashions because they're billion-dollar companies, and what they're hoping is that a piece of tech will hit and then they'll monetize it. It's a great business model, but fundamentally 90% are, they're contributing 90%. The rest of the actual probably 80% of the population that's utilizing the tech is actually contributing nothing. What they are doing is
just putting a face.
They are putting a React front end onto the tech and saying, "Oh, we've made a new AI tool." It's a funny joke right now. If you go to San Francisco and you're looking to raise money, just stick .ai onto the end of your company, and then you'll
get some money.
Yes, but kind of what is happening is, like, if you look at all these AI tools, they're actually just using OpenAI's APIs. They're just doing web requests to their servers where there's no control of where the data is going. We don't know what that data is being used to do. They tell us, that their best intentions, but even the worst things in life always start with good intentions. So, we're at this weird point where, a blockchain was the same when it was the thing. Everyone was just forking each other's stuff.
Yeah.
But it's really rampant in the, AI space right now. And I always the one thing that is a pet peeve of mine is when people just say AI. I'm like, oh, what do you mean?
There's so many layers.
Are you
to
talking
AI.
about convolutional neural network? Are you talking about machine learning? Are you talking about just some random algorithm that you've made based upon a heuristic decision tree? Are you talking about GAN-based diffuser models? Like all of these, actually tell me what you're utilizing. A great example is, and the way I like to, describe it is, it's like saying, oh, I have a car, but not actually saying what type of car you have or what engine's in it. It's like, what does it do and why are you using it? So all these companies using essentially OpenAI's API stack. OpenAI is the worst for it, and they're not actually innovating. They're getting the same result. And what happens is we start to go into this phase where the first stage is there's a big technological the awakening. OpenAI launches, ChatGPT comes out, and then we're like, oh my god, this is amazing. Most people don't realize there had been innovation for the last 5 years, but the ChatGPT was the moment. So that launches. Then all of a sudden, all of these tech stacks come out. They just say, okay, we're not going to invest the money and build this ourselves. We're just going to use the API stack. So they use the API stack. What then happens is they build their front end. It's very nice. It looks great. And they just say, we're innovating in this way. They aren't actually doing anything.
They're just piggybacking on existing technologies like everybody else. They just put a face on it.
Yes.
So I want you guys to understand, if you don't know where the data is coming from, you're going to get hurt. At some point, you're going to get hurt. You need to understand where the data is coming from. So Josh and I, we see the world as, this is great, mom and pops, and I can use OpenAI to book flights if I want to, and I can use OpenAI to create fun things with my kids. But when it comes to your business, it's not about piggybacking on a technology that you're not aware where the technology is coming from. Let's talk OpenAI. They're not even live. They're using the internet a few months ago. The internet itself is very much flawed. I think it's 80% flawed. So you're basing yourself on a platform that's 80% wrong, and then you're confused on how your responses don't come correctly.
Yeah, it becomes it's like an example I like to give is, would you any sort of, it's kind of very similar to businesses that don't actually make their own products and they just import them from China or whatever it is. They don't actually know what's going into how it's made. They're just getting the product out of a black box. They don't see behind the curtain, and that's it.
Basically being a reseller.
Yes, that's all that's really happening on the AI front. It's just a digital reseller. Now, where that becomes a problem is when you're a business that actually either cares about your consumers or cares about your product quality, you can't control it. And a great example is, if you have any sort of organization, you're using ChatGPT to rewrite your blogs or whatever it is, or your social media posts, you don't actually know where that data is coming from.
No idea.
You could be infringing on someone else's rights, and that's not a problem until it is a problem.
Yeah, and it could be a problem.
And it's most people say, oh, it's never going to be an issue, and then all of a sudden you get a $50 million lawsuit in the door, and then your business shuts down. Which has happened.
We've seen this happen.
Yes.
So, guys, if you don't know what you're doing and you're posting it out there, you may have infringed on Disney's rights. You may have infringed on ESPN's. You may have and those companies, they'll get after you. So be careful.
Yes, yeah, 100%. And the example I always like to give is, if you type into ChatGPT or Midjourney, Runway ML, any of these tools, and you type Mickey Mouse, and all of a sudden you get exactly, you get Mickey Mouse, well, then that's a problem. Then that means that, okay, that was trained on data that's just out there on the internet that they don't necessarily have the rights to use. And funny enough, if you go to the terms of service of a lot of these platforms, they say, hey, we don't stand over this. This is like, you use this at your own risk. We're just giving you the shovel. If you want to dig your hole, well, then go ahead and do it.
Another thing, when you put your information into an OpenAI, you're actually giving it up.
Yes.
Okay, you're giving up it's not yours anymore. It belongs to the data engines, and they're going to go through it. So it's a two-edged sword. You also give away your special ingredient, and never give away to OpenAI your special ingredient. So what do we suggest? How do we solve a problem that AI is something we all need to use?
Yes.
How do we help companies use AI?
Well, so a lot of it's kind of standing on the shoulder of giants. Really, what you do is a lot of these codecs, a lot of these tools to train these models is now open source. It's out there. So the method to do it, like the blueprint has been released to the public. Everyone knows how to train their own models and to do that. Great. So now what you got to do is you got to train them. So if you have, great example, if you're utilizing like, ChatGPT internally in your company or whatever, you should build your own LLM. You should train on your own data. Most companies that have been in business for anything longer than a year or two have a lot of data that they can train on. And what you can do is you can actually make your own kind of mini ChatGPT that responds the way you like to respond, that is run in your own cloud instance, that you control the data, you know where it's going.
You can even have it run locally.
Yes, you can even run it locally on your phone. Through new things coming out like Unity Centis, you can run models from home and face right in your device.
So let's give a couple of examples. So for instance, there is a lot of like RSP response tool running around out there. None of them is so good because none of them know anything about you. So when we build something like that, and again, not everybody can afford something like that, but we basically build them almost a whole new LLM that understands who they are, what they need, secures their data, and makes sure that the data is trained so they can actually create an RFP the way this company would create the RFP and save, 10x in time.
Yeah.
Another way we're doing it, I own a marketing company, and we put together this device where we connect it to your knowledge base, to your assets, to your logo, to your tone, to everything you've ever written. And then we use that AI to create your creation with your voice and your tone, and it's completely yours. It's not based on anything that another company did, and you might get sued on that.
Yes.
So you got to take AI and you got to put parameters on it. You got to defend it, secure it, and put your data on it, and not let all open systems utilize it, because sometimes this is your data.
Yeah, it's your data. And the thing about that too is, and the thing to focus in on a little bit, is the quality is generally never right too. Like if you use ChatGPT for something, you generally don't get the result you want. You get a result, and oftentimes it's 80% what you want it to be. So then you have to editorialize it, you have to put in this layer, and then you have to verify all the information that's in it. Wouldn't it be just easier if you could just spin it up, type in what you need? It will still give you probably between 90% where you need to go, but at least you'll be able to track back, okay, it gave me that piece of information because of this, this, and this, which makes it then you be able to make the decision and, actually be confident that the content that you're putting out there can be utilized correctly. And the other thing as well is, this is an important one, if you're working with any sort of cloud enterprise technology stack, whether that be Zoho, Salesforce, HubSpot, it's actually hard to get these things to play together nicely. They generally don't. Like they just don't integrate. They don't work together. Or if you're using your own on-prem software, that's even worse. Yeah, they just don't talk to each other. So by having your own custom technology stack, it also means then that you can integrate all these things very nicely, neatly, and that they're going to play nicely together, which is super important. And the other piece, and not many people think about this, but from a company value perspective, if you're just using here's the example I like to give. You say you're investing in OpenAI's ChatGPT, and you're like, we're as an organization, we are going to use that. Awesome, great. You're going to pay $30 a month for a user over the next 10 years, and however much it's going to be. Or you take that money, you invest it in your own technology, and all of a sudden you double the value of your company because you have proprietary technology that is yours. It's not someone else's.
I want to repeat this, guys. So think about this. If you develop a technology for yourself, for your company, you now invested in your company, and your company is now worth so much more because there's a tech stack that is yours. Okay. I get calls to sell my business probably 3 times a week. Most of the reason for it is the tech stacks that are connected to it. It's not, I'm nice and everything, but it's not like they want to buy me or my name. They want to buy the tech stacks that we've developed. And even on some deals we've done that didn't work that well, as long as the tech stack was good, those companies made a lot of money,
Yes.
got bought out, got invested in because of the technology. So if you are in any touching field to technology, by developing your own technology, you will basically double, triple, quadruple the value of your company if the technology is good.
Yeah, well, I mean, a great example is, traditionally, if you're looking at, say, you're a service-based business, right? You provide a service to someone. You go to exit that company, you're going to get a 3x multiple on your revenue or EBITDA.
EBITDA.
That's pretty much what you're going to get. But if you
Mhm.
have a piece of technology behind that, then you suddenly can get up to a 10x of your EBITDA. So,
I don't know if you guys know about this, but a lot of the biggest companies in the world don't even make money. Like
Yeah.
they're not even profitable, but they have technology, and that's their value. So, and data today is so valuable. So, if you have a technology that's able to take that data and do something with it, now even if you're not profitable, you can be worth billions of dollars.
Yes, yes. And as most big companies aren't profitable because they're constantly investing in the technology, which then empowers them to do more. They leverage debt quite well, and then they are able to grow and scale, which is awesome. So it's a different way to think of things. And one thing I'll always like to know too is if you talk to your CTO, anybody that's in your organization that handles your tech, even if they're not a CTO, they are going to be much more comfortable operating with something that they control compared to something that they have no control over. Because at the end of the day, it's their jobs on the line if something gets hacked. It's their, that you're responsible for data. And if you're dealing with Europe at all, you've got to comply with GDPR. You've got to comply with all the regulations on that side, which is another can of worms that you just can't. Like one of the greatest things about the regs that got passed in Europe is that you have, as a consumer, you need to be able to request to remove your data from someone's database or whatever if you don't want it there. So you have a lot of power over your own data, which is great. But if I, as a business, go and then upload your data to ChatGPT to then process some sort of form or something, I've then given their data away. I can't then go to OpenAI and say, hey, remove that data. Or I can, but I'd have to do that for every single customer. You've then just essentially given something to someone that you don't have the right to give, which is a scary concept. A great example. Would you go and give your company's internal, filing records to a random person who walked in and says, hey, I'm going to give it back to you?
Absolutely not.
No. So why would you do it digitally? It's like people just don't connect that in their brain of like, hey, I'm giving this away and I don't actually have the right to give it. And again, it's not a problem until you get sued. And then it's a big problem. And then everyone's like, it's kind of, and then they're like, oh, why didn't I know? It's like, well, you did know, you just didn't care. And so, it's a lot to weigh up there. But the big thing is that if you're going to innovate, you're going to stay ahead. If you stay ahead, you will survive and you will thrive. It's the core thing. Those who don't won't. And it's a zero sum game.
It's a zero sum game. So, guys, Josh and I are in the DC area. We're actually in Tyson's Corner right now. We're having a week full of meetings, a lot of exciting stuff. If you guys want to talk to us, reach out. Josh will be in DC until Thursday. I'll be in DC, I think, till the weekend. We're excited to meet. We have so many fun meetings coming up. So if anybody wants us, please reach out. Josh, thank you so much.
No worries.
This is important, man.
Yes.
Knowledge is important. Guys, AI is a code name, and blockchain is a code name, and gamification is a code name. But you got to dive deeper. You got to understand what you're doing. And if you can't hurt your company now because you won't survive. You have to make the right decisions now. Now, everybody, please follow Josh on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Josh, if you can, give one piece of advice for our listeners, what they need to look at right now to make sure that they're doing the right steps moving forward with technology.
The one piece that I always like to say, because my whole background is enterprise corporate software. That's typically it, whether that be in the game and entertainment industry or whether that be in traditional SaaS. The one thing I always say is focus on a piece of technology per quarter. Really try to do it well. Mm-hmm. Build your policies around it, make sure your team's trained on it, and push them there. Don't try and do everything. The second you try and do everything, you will end up doing nothing. It's it's constant chasing the tail, and you get to the end of the year, then you've actually got nothing to show for it. Whereas if you tightly integrate a piece of technology, use it well, and don't just give up when the first hurdle comes around. Then you will be much more successful and much more secure as an organization. The more it's a simple example. The more holes you prick in a balloon full of water, the more water that will come out. And every time you put a new piece of tech into your company's balloon, you are putting a potential hole where someone could come in that you didn't want them to.
You're creating a vulnerability,
which is a big risk. And any company that's got a serious effort in their cybersecurity presence will know that they try and keep that on lockdown, because it's a big issue. So
love it. Josh, thank you so much. This is our first live in one location,
Yes.
which was fun. Everybody, please follow Josh and let us know what other things you'd like to know. And see you guys. See you in the next live.